This topic is going to be a little controversial because a carnivore diet is a great way of eating for muscle growth and for improving exercise performance. But I made a crucial mistake during my first few months of eating carnivore, and this cost me a few kgs of muscle mass, and so I wanted to share what this was so you don't make the same mistake. Firstly though, I just want to say I'm not actually that upset about losing my gains, because I also cured my body dysmorphia, which was pretty severe at the time. And now I feel a lot more happy with my current physique than I ever did at my most jacked and ripped. I realized that gaining muscle and working out in a blue light lit indoor gym wasn't actually the healthy habit I thought it was. But anyway, I'll save that rant for another video. Here is the one and only reason why carnivore killed my gains. Undereating. When you're trying to build muscle, the amount of food you eat is far more important than the types of food you eat. Yes, you want adequate amount of protein for muscle synthesis and saturated fat for optimal hormone production. But you can get jacked eating a shitty standard diet like me and many other people have. I was eating 2 meals in every sitting when I was at my biggest and strongest, and it didn't take me long before my appetite became permanently elevated. The term for this is actually called leptin resistance. Leptin is the satiety hormone responsible for sending the full signals to your brain that tell you you've received enough energy from food and it's time to stop eating. Insulin spikes from carb-dense meals can actually weaken or outright block the response you get from leptin, which is why you may feel hungrier after eating a carby meal. So when I was already overeating and expanding my stomach too much, the last thing I needed was a 400 grams plus of carbs per day, which was just chronically elevating my insulin levels and leading to this poor leptin sensitivity. A carnivore diet actually saved me, because for the first time in years, I was finally feeling satiated after eating my carb-free meat-only meals. Meat is the most satiating food on the planet, particularly raw meat, and so this diet quickly cured my leptin sensitivity issues and made eating sustainable again. The downside of this, depending how you look at it, is I was now eating about half as much food as I had been in the last 4 years of lifting. Although the caloric value of food itself has no jurisdiction over the weight gain you experience from eating that food, because calories are just photons, not encumbered by mass, and humans consume mass, not energy. I have a whole video about this called Why Calorie Tracking is BS if you want to watch that. But just for reference, I went from eating 2.5k to 3.5k calories per day to around 1.4 to 1.6k, which would be considered a major deficit by conventional standards. The thing is though, I was feeling more satiated than ever before, so it really didn't feel like a deficit compared to my previous cutting experiences where I would starve all day and suffer terrible brain fog. But unfortunately, as I began to prioritize raw meat, which is even more satiating than cooked, the undereating reached its peak. I began to experience brain fog, low energy, and electrolyte disturbance symptoms, and my gym strength was way down across the board. Basically, as I fixed my leptin sensitivity issues, the satiety signals were so strong for me on carnivore that I ended up accidentally undereating, which led to my body prioritizing its available energy and building blocks for its vital functions, rather than muscle synthesis and recovery. Large muscles actually steal energy from your heart and brain, so it was crucial that my body shredded off the excess muscle mass when it did. My experience may sound like a nightmare for you gym bros out there, and I never thought I would be okay with losing as much muscle as I did, but that's all just vanity and doesn't really matter. Here's what was actually dangerous about my undereating. So I was eating enough protein daily, about 150 to 200 grams, which is plenty. But I was undereating fat, which becomes far more essential for energy on a ketogenic diet like carnivore. This forced my body to use protein for energy, not only from food, but by breaking down my muscle mass when it needed it. Not only is this a less efficient fuel source, but the process also creates ammonia as a byproduct, which is very harmful, particularly for the central nervous system. This is known as rabbit starvation, and it's a danger of trying to subsist on only lean meats. Another thing I did wrong was rushing into OMAD, aka 1 meal a day, too quickly. OMAD is optimal on carnivore if you can do it without starving. But some people like me just can't or don't want to eat that much food in one sitting though, and they end up undereating. I recommend sticking with 2 or 3 meals per day when you're new to carnivore, especially if you're trying to build muscle. Keep in mind that when you stop consuming carbohydrates, your muscles will also store less water. As a result, you may look a little smaller or less pumped before you work out. Anyway, that explains why I lost a few kgs of muscle mass in a few months on carnivore. My advice to gym bros looking to do carnivore is make sure you eat enough. If you can't eat enough from just meat alone, then consider adding dairy, which is actually addictive because of a compound in it called beta-casomorphin 7, which basically allows you to eat way more food than you would have otherwise, making it a great weight gain tool. I'd highly recommend raw A2 dairy to limit immune triggers from the casein protein, but not everyone has access to that. If I ever decide to regain the muscle I had while staying carnivore, I just reintroduce dairy, flavor and cook my meat more often, and I'd expect to see considerable gains within just a few weeks. You don't ever need to worry about tracking calories, but you should consider tracking your fat intake every now and again to make sure you're eating enough. I'd recommend a ratio of between 1:1 to 2:1 of fat to protein in grams. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Hit me up in the comments if a similar or opposite experience happened to you when you switched to carnivore. Also, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you may have concerning health, or diet. Cheers for watching, see you in the next one.